I've always been fascinated by the interplay between creativity and curiosity. I've always been like, oh, well, I suppose still, I was one of those children who, if you asked me what I wanted to be when I grow up, I did not have an answer for you because I liked everything. I may not have been good at everything, as my dad will often make fun of me for. I did Veliki Wiskunde growing up. I had maths lit. I cannot count. And it's okay. We can admit our faults. I can do many other things. Maths is not one of them. All right. However, I had a really, really effective design teacher when I was in my senior years of high school. She was a very cool lady. She was a jewelry designer by trade, and kind of did design high school classes on the side effectively. But she introduced me to the concept of design being a method of bridging the gap between creativity and communication effectively, because that is what design is. It's visual communication in whatever way you do it, whether it's tangible or digital or 2D or 3D, it doesn't really matter. You are communicating an idea, you are solving a problem. And design for me specifically has become a really interesting and impactful way to break down and simplify really complex things and be able to communicate those things to other people. And we always have to defer to the content experts, obviously. But I think for many of us, being able to communicate their ideas more effectively is a bit more important. But what do I know? Anyway, I can do a lot of rambling. I like talking, especially if it's about myself. I won't bore you with that though. What I do want to maybe impart on you before I continue, because genuinely what I do for work doesn't really matter, but what I do want to impart before we carry on and actually learn about the things that I want to talk about is to consider that great design is dependent on people, right? There are many ways to skin a cat, but I think the most effective way to do that and many other things is to have fun while doing it. People like having fun. So if you, so anyway, is to have fun while doing it. So if you can introduce that kind of sense of whimsy and wonder in your otherwise very boring designs, I think this is going to be super impactful, right? So again, we're talking about gamification, but ultimately that's part of something called playful design. And that is predominantly going to be what I'm going to be talking about. So stop playing with the trackpad. So before we get into anything, I want to think about the anthropology of games. So the history of games. Where did it come from? Why is it the way that it is? Why is it so effective, right? So I would wager to say, I'm not an anthropologist, I'm not a historian. This has nothing to do with me, honestly. But play has always been essential to human life. I think it's very easy for us to say oh, we're soft now because we live in a technologically advanced society. You don't have to have that conversation with your parents where they go back in my day, I had to walk, both ways uphill to school in the rain and the snow, barefoot, which maybe, probably not though. But we still struggle today. But in the same sense, we also in our historical past played games. It was a way for us to connect and to create shared meaning and to unwind. I'm sure it was very stressful having to hunt antelope or whatever, waiting for the rains to come for the harvest. But if we think about the kind of games that we still play, either directly or in newer evolved forms, things like Go, the board game, ancient China, thousands of years old. Senate, which was a ball game. It's the precursor to football, and a bunch of other I don't know, ball sports, I suppose. I'm not a sports person. I do apologize for anyone that I've offended. But many of the sports that we play now have been things that we've done to pass the time for an excessively long time, if we think about it. Initially, games were symbolic and ritualistic and deeply social. Maybe they've lost some of that meaning, but I think if we think about it for even a minute, you can, dissect it pretty effectively. So, my slide here says, older than most written languages, play is not a byproduct of culture. Play is one of its original building blocks. So I must apologize in advance. Again, I take my academic title very seriously. But part of my research introduced me to Johann Huizenga. He's some very smart Dutch guy from like 100 and something years ago. Anthropologist, historian, looked at how play and playing games shaped culture. Saying that play doesn't come after culture, it comes before it, because it helps to shape it. So it helps us to create structure, it helps us to create identity, and it helps us to create community effectively. He had this guy, I'm not going to do the name again. There's also going to be a name later that, fingers crossed, I can pronounce. I'm going to try my best. But anyway, he had 5 main metrics for defining play. So firstly, play is defined as voluntary and outside of the bounds of life. So not saying you have to be dead to play games, but that it shouldn't necessarily, and we're talking gamification in a second here, so that may be a little bit, outside of the scope here. But firstly, to play a game, you have to opt in. You cannot be forced into playing a game, because then it's no longer fun. And effectively, it cannot be part of the monotony of your day-to-day. All right. It has to be outside of that. Secondly, a game has to be bound by rules and or structure. Even the playground games that we used to play as children had very strict rules. I'm sure we all knew a very bossy 5-year-old when it came to the ins and outs of tag or red light, green light, and help you if you tried cheating, right? Or if the even inkling of you playing the game wrong. Even something as easy as playing house could have been done very incorrectly, and you would have been told about it, right? So you have to follow the rules. Them's the rules, right? So play is defined as time and space limited. It's the same ways that you opt into it, that you follow the rules, you have to do it in certain settings. If you play Sudoku on your phone, you are sitting down, you are playing the game. It is bound by the four sides of your phone. If you play paddle, which that is an insane thing to do, by the way, like it's so intense. It's not for me. I'll stick to my pickleball. Thank you very much. But you go to the court to play. If you jog, you're limited by the road you run on. You do things in specific places, in the same way that like your mom probably told you to not study on your bed because the bed is made for sleeping. You limit certain activities to certain places and times. This is also referred to as the magic circle. Sounds very intense, but it is literally just that, limiting yourself to within a space to do things and a time, I suppose. But this magic circle gives you freedom to do things that you wouldn't do elsewhere, in the same way that we can have the argument to say that like, oh, violent video games cause violence outside, like in the real world. I'm sure there are extreme cases where that is true, but in most cases, for most standard, average, normal people, playing violent video games have nothing to do with your day-to-day life. If you play Fortnite with your friends and you're very aggressive doing it, you're being you're actively participating, being actively engaged and correctly engaged within the bounds that have been set. you're not beating them up in real life. Maybe you are, but maybe you're a sore loser and need to talk to someone about that. But playing the game the way it's intended to be played happens within that magic circle. And if we think about like more real world examples, things like sporting events or courtroom trials, maybe we would not go so far as saying like courtroom trials, but like mock trials or mock debates are simulations of real world scenarios where you can try things, where you can experiment without them having real world consequences. In the same way that like exams, unfortunately, sorry to bring that up during a talk about fun and games, is a way to test your knowledge, right? To try things before you do them in real life. And that happens within, again, that magic circle. Play is defined as joyful and absorbing. Can't suck. You have to like it. Unfortunately, you have to enjoy it for it to be a game. So if you don't like doing a crossword and you're doing a crossword anyway, I fear you're just doing a chore. And then lastly, play is defined as providing the ability to create meaning. So again, we're doing it voluntarily within a set time and space, following certain rules, because within those bounds that we've set for ourselves, we can then grow. We can create things that can maybe extend past that scenario that we've created for ourselves, but we're doing it in a way that allows us to make mistakes and grow. Right. Okay. This brings us to our next talking point, I suppose. We can build habits through play. And I touched on this earlier. If we have positive experiences, we're more likely to go back to something. And bless you, we're more likely, bless you again, you only get one more. Anyway, if we enjoy something, we're more likely to go back to it. If it is a beneficial task that we're doing, that habit can have positive, long-lasting effects. We can think of this as the hook model. So near Eyal, I hope that is said correctly. This is not the name that I'm going to struggle with, by the way. Created the hook model. Those of you who work in UX or the UI space may already be familiar with it. It's a pretty standard behavioral tool that gets used pretty often. But effectively, the hook model is a cyclical model that involves 4 key parts. So we want to trigger an emotion, an action, etc. We want them to, or them being the user, to do the action. We want them to feel some sort of reward, whether that is intrinsic or extrinsic. And we want that reward to be strong enough to drive investment, because that investment is going to get people to come back. So we can do this in many different ways: effective, ineffective. We can do it in sneaky, underhanded ways, and probably in more positive, nice ways, I suppose. And I must apologize in advance. I'm probably going to bring up Duolingo as an example a lot, because the owl does, I fear, have its grips in me. I have not done my Duolingo for the day, by the way, and it is making me sweat a little bit. The owl's going to come for me. But effectively, this trigger action reward investment model is super effective. So, trigger being, I see an ad, I talk to someone, I learn about something, let's say a very appealing language learning app with cartoon characters to drive engagement. I see an ad for them. I decide, cool, this looks pretty engaging. I'm going to download it. There's my action. I do one lesson. It's great job. You did it perfectly. You are the queen of all languages. You can do no wrong. And I say, thank you, bird. I agree. and it says, fantastic, you've been here 1 day now. If you come back tomorrow, I will give you virtual coins, and you can use them to buy spare lives when you inevitably learn that you are very bad at languages, actually, and I lied. And then that just keeps happening, and now I'm on day 255. So hook model, super effective. Maybe don't do sneaky, scaly, underhanded things, but those are super effective also. We'll get into those in a second though. Anyway, so I've got some examples here of probably beneficial hook, trigger, etc. Apps. So the first one here is Forest. I do love Forest. It's a productivity app. Effectively, what it does is it locks your phone. You set a timer with a labeled task. It opens it up. You pick a little tree or a shrub or a plant or a flower that you would like to grow. And for the duration that you use this app, you cannot exit the little forest that you are growing. So the screenshot here has set it for 105 minutes. So that is crazy. I only set it for a maximum of 45 because otherwise I get sad if I can't doom scroll. And if you guys are disagreeing with me, you're all filthy liars. Thank you. Anyway, so you set your timer, your tree grows. You can lock your phone. That does nothing to the tree. However, if you log out of the app for more than 10 seconds, your tree dies. You get a little grace period. Maybe you did it accidentally. Maybe it was force of habits, muscle memory, whatever it may be. You get a little notification, pop-up banner thing going, please, your tree's going to die. And if it's important enough, you will sacrifice the tree for the greater good. However, it's a very effective little notification. So you say, I'm sorry, tree, I will come back. You go back in, the tree continues growing, all is healthy, happy. You get a little timer buzzer going off. You have a tree, and you can do that for as many squares as you need throughout the day. You can set it for different tasks, different times. You can set it for a minute, 10 minutes, whatever. Doesn't need to be 105. That's also an insane time to set a timer for work in hours and a half hours. That's crazy. But 105, that actually, I didn't see that when I saved the picture. That frustrates me immensely. Anyway, so very useful application of gamification. Then we have Habitica. Now, I must confess, I have not actually used this, but I've seen so many people talk about it, and I would actually like to know if anyone's ever used this productivity app before. Have you? Is it good?
It's very,
Is it as good as people say it is?
but you need to like RPG games.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why. Okay. So for our homies in the void, we do have a victim that's used Habitica before. We have positive reviews on the side, but effectively, like it kind of looks like over there, it RPGifies your daily tasks. You get your stats that you would in normal video games, and it rewards you in some way, shape, or form, I'm assuming, for doing the things and staying on track. And I do think that treating myself as a game protagonist would be very beneficial in my day to day. So I will be downloading this on my way home. But anyway, so again, these are applications. There are many of them. I'm not going to bore you with the entire app store worth of things that you can download that have been gamified, because that's everything pretty much. But these are good examples of a positive application of gamification to drive that beneficial habit building. It's a bit better than the TikTok doom scroll, though I do like both equally, I suppose. Anyway, so fun lowers barriers and fuels intrinsic motivation. It makes hard things easier to start with, and then again, easier to stick with. You guys can read those, so I'm going to move on. Okay. So gamification, that is, I suppose, why the vast majority of you guys are here and are trying to listen to me, even though I ramble. But I want to talk first about what gamification isn't, right? It's important for us to know what it isn't so that we do know what it is. It's not just slapping a badge on something or allowing you to collect XP for spending a certain amount of time, or XP for the non-gamers in the room being experience points, by the way. being gifted tokens for doing certain tasks. It's not just that, right? Because that alone is not going to be enough to get you to buy in to do the thing. It's going to be the owl, I will not name names, that bullies you at 6 p.m. because you haven't interacted with it yet. It's like the world's most annoying Tamagotchi. And those were pretty bad already. So just for context there. But you know, when we move past what we think of as gamification in terms of the badges and the rewards and the things, we need to think about why things are engaging. It's not just the getting money, right? It is the storytelling, the identity that you develop while playing these games. It is the intrinsic motivation. So I use the word intrinsic and extrinsic a lot. I realized I have not clarified that yet. It is pretty self-explanatory, I feel like. Intrinsic motivators being the things that drive you personally, that don't necessarily show outwardly. You know, I like going to school. I like studying. If you sit next to me at a coffee shop, you will not know that. It's intrinsic to me. Education is important. I like learning. So that's an intrinsic motivator. The extrinsic motivator for me doing all of my studying is the pretty little piece of paper I get at the end of it, because I can hang the degree on my wall and people will say, "Oh my God, Nicole, you're so smart." And then I will go, "I know, thank you for noticing." Right? So that is my extrinsic motivator. And we can think about that in like multiple different ways. If we think about something that we all probably, maybe you don't, but that we all use, social media, right? Intrinsically, yeah, I want to feel good about myself and post my pictures and share my experiences with my friends. And I want to pretend that I have no desire to have people think well of me because of that. But if I get a little follower, or if I get a little like on a picture, or people tell me my caption is funny in a comment, that's going to do a lot more for me than just the simple act of posting the picture, right? That's your extrinsic motivator. And sometimes when we use these extrinsic motivators, that can get a little dicey. And that's where the negative connotations can come in. With gamification, much like with coding and hacking, we have white hat and black hat gamification. White hat good, black hat bad. Not bad in like evil, but like bad as in not nice, right? So white hat, those intrinsic things. Oh, you like learning? Cool. Let's learn a language together. Black hat being, if you don't come do your language like class for today, then no more streak for you. And it's that dangling of the carrots. The dangling is very bad. We don't like that long term because it makes people stressed, it makes them anxious, it makes fun things not fun anymore. And then we break the gamification and then we say no. So if you have gamified something, it's very easy to fall into the trap of just thinking in terms of scarcity, in terms of the thing that is like just out of reach that you have to continue working for, like those games that you get ads for on social media, and then the game looks super fun, and then you realize, oh cool, to play the game that I actually saw, I'm gonna have to pay like 99 rand or whatever, however much the game wants to extort from you. That is the just out of reach, because I'm sure it is a fantastic game on your phone. Not gamification, by the way. Gamification. But it's that thing that's like just out of reach. And if that happens enough, and if the risk that you have to take or the sacrifice that you have to make is too great, it's going to be more dissuasive than it's going to be persuasive. And that's no fun. And then your thing's going to fail and you're going to be sad and your user's going to hate you. And then you will have no goodwill. And then people are going to start about your toxic carbon emissions again. Thanks, VW. Anyway, so we have shallow gamification, badges, points, tokens, things that you can probably do things with and that you can show off and say, fantastic, I'm so cool. But then we also have deep gamification. So that's the story building elements, the agency that you get as a character, whether that's like an actual character that you have to create, or the character that you are as a human being, just participating in the act of doing the thing that you're doing for funsies. And then lastly, we get feedback. We like getting told about things. My students get very upset with me if I don't give them feedback along with their marks. Normally I do that because I don't want to be mean in writing, but we like getting feedback. When we're using an app and it's slow or it stops working, at least having the pinwheel of death on your Mac is going to show you that something is happening. It's maybe not working, but something's happening. That's feedback. It's telling you something. It might not be telling you what you want to hear, but at least you're being communicated with. And that's part of like deep gamification. Okay. So again, you don't have to tell me. We can think about this quietly. I will tell you. I'm going to talk at you guys. But what's got you hooked at the moment? For me, it's many things. I'm very easily influenced. But again, the purpose of today is to explore how we play, how delight entices, and how we derive meaning from engagements and experiences. For me, let's talk about the digital platforms that we're probably addicted to, right? You've probably checked an app before because you felt a vibration in your phone that did not exist. It was the ghost of a feeling because you're so linked to it. You think you heard the notification sound, whatever. Maybe you don't have your vibrate on. That would be crazy, by the way. Or you go talk to your little owl friend because you don't want to break your streak. It's micro awards. It has no real bearing on your day-to-day life. It doesn't do anything. The government's not going to come for me because I broke my Duolingo streak, or I didn't do my Wordle for the day, or something. But it gives you a little hit of dopamine. It's fantastic. We love that little hit of dopamine. As someone who's diagnosed with ADHD late, I'm getting to know dopamine really well right now, and it's so interesting. For those of you who don't know, tangent, ADHD is a disorder that's caused by not having enough dopamine in your brain. And that's why you're so easily distracted, because you like things and that creates dopamine, but then everything that you don't like, that does not have any dopamine, and you don't do things if you don't have dopamine. So if that's you, maybe go talk to a doctor. Not medical advice. Anyway, so if we think about it outside of a game context, and I'll go into some more like explicit examples later, something like Reddit's karma system. If you don't use Reddit, maybe stay that way, probably. It's difficult to navigate. But getting points for leaving comments and like being helpful, that's going to inspire you to engage. Contributing on GitHub gives you like a little graph of like things that you've done. Super cool. Duolingo, again, many different ways that it makes you do things. But these platforms in all of their different ways. When I was making this presentation, by the way, I got a little pop-up from Canva. I used Canva to make some fantastic. Don't use it if you haven't yet. I'm late to the game, apparently. I got bullied about that earlier. But I got a pop-up saying, oh, you've created X number of things using Canva. That's cool. Do you want to go edit your award? I was like, what the fuck? Why am I getting points for making presentations? It did get me though. I did click on the pop-up. So again, this gamification thing, very effective. They understand, these platforms that incorporate gamification, understand users' desires to feel seen, to feel engaged with, to see their progress, get recognized for the things that they do, whether that is doing your French lesson for the day, or the fifth time you've made a PowerPoint, like a presentation using Canva. I like being recognized for the things that I do, even if I don't do them well, right? So for me, these are my current addictions. Is Duolingo, for sure. I've included 3 very pretty screenshots there. And I'd like to point out that I did use the January screenshot because I got a perfect month in January. I haven't gotten one since, so I didn't want to include any of those. But then the New York Times games and also the LinkedIn games, whoever at LinkedIn was like, yeah, you guys are going to play word games and maze games. I would like to have a strong word, but also I do have a streak going there now as well. So if you haven't played the LinkedIn games before, not sponsored, but do highly recommend. Anyway, so these are my current things that like give me pop-ups to go back to them, but I'm sure if I were to think about it for more than 5 minutes, there would be a lot of parts of my day that either have already been gamified for me or that I gamify for myself. You know, if we think about like real world examples, if you gym at Virgin Active, you have the streak that you build at Virgin Active, very enticing. It's very mean to you if you don't go your however many times a week. And like getting my little Kauai smoothie. I haven't gone in a while, so I should probably get back to that. But it's fun. It's rewarding. I like getting things for doing things, right? So building off of our habits, habit building, etc., we can talk about flow states. Now, this is the name that I don't know if I can say, right? So Polish psychologist, I'm pretty sure. She sent me hi E. Yes. I don't know. I don't know. I had to Google it. There was no Google pronunciation guide, but it did give me like uh um when you like break it down, phonetic pronunciation of it. So sorry to that guy. He is probably dead and doesn't care. But apologies if I got that wrong. Anyway, he introduced the idea of a flow state. Okay, cool. He introduced the idea of a flow state. So there is this graph that I'm going to show you. It's not very pretty, I will admit. However, what we're getting at here is that the challenge level of a thing that we're doing, obviously we're talking about games or gamified products in this sense, is directly linked, or how much you enjoy something is directly linked both to your challenge level and your skill level. So when you start something new, it has to be easy, because if you try something very difficult, if you immediately say, okay, cool, I'm going to crochet entire quilt, but I've never actually touched a crochet hook in my life, that's gonna really suck. Speaking from experience, I don't know how to crochet, but the first thing that I saved as a pattern was a blanket. And then everyone on the internet was like, what the hell is wrong with you? And so I still don't know how to crochet because I don't know how to do bite sizes of anything. But bite sizes are important, right? Start things, they are easy. The better you get, the more complex they get, the more engaging it becomes, and the more like exciting it is. Because then when you're good at something, you can go, oh my God, I'm so good. Look at how difficult this is. Look at how many squares there are in my Sudoku board. What is a Sudoku thing? Whatever. Anyway, I don't actually know what the collective for a Sudoku is. Anyway, but this direct correlation between challenge level and skill level helps build that flow state. So it's going to encourage you to do things more, to continue doing them. And it gives you that little rush when you do something that's difficult and you overcome it, whether that is language learning with an evil green owl, or whether that is playing tennis against someone who is above your skill level and beating them. That is the important bit. Otherwise, it's very easy to be a sore loser. Or a bunch of different things, playing a ranked version or a ranked league in a game. They help you become more engaged in what you're doing, right? So the best moments usually occur when a person's body or mind is stretched to its limits in a voluntary effort, again, that word, voluntary effort, to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile. Again, doesn't have to be worthwhile in the sense that you say like, oh, you're going to earn money from it, or you're going to say, oh, I was so productive doing it, but something that has meaning to you. I like reading. Doesn't make a difference to anyone else in my life. But when I say I've finished 10 books in a month, that feels pretty cool. That's pretty lame to say out loud, actually. But, it's fun. It makes me feel good about myself. I get to tick off a box in a journal. So if we think about play in the wild, here are some examples. Stack Overflow. Gamification is being used to support community knowledge sharing, right? You get reputation points. More reputation points help you unlock privileges, like you can edit posts or your votes on other posts have more weight to them. The way that the system as a whole is set up is it encourages you to be helpful. So it's not like Reddit where it just encourages you to be funny and or mean, but it encourages you to help people. It encourages you to contribute to learning, whether your own or other people's. But by doing these things, it gives you tangible signs of growth. It is gamifying UX in a way that provides meaningful contribution, not just that like superficial activity that we spoke of earlier. Then, like I mentioned previously, we have Reddit's karma system. So again, it's just points and awards that you get for contributing to posts. Less inclined to be helpful, sometimes very toxic grain of salt. Depends, maybe just double check which subreddits you're in. Some of them, because these are user-generated content, and because they, yeah, grammatically, I think that makes sense. It is user-generated content, and the subreddits or I don't know enough to like I do know, I don't know how to explain it in a way that if you don't know Reddit, I can't do that for you, I fear, unfortunately. But these like sub pages, I suppose, are user moderated as well. So some of them incorporate the gamification way more effectively and way more frequently than others do. But effectively, you can give posts flares. They have their own points systems in some senses, and you can be given awards and achievements based on how helpful or hinderful you are. Ultimately, your profile gets reputation points, super fun. If you've got a lot of reputation points, your posts get pushed, and you just get acknowledged by the community in some way, shape, or form. In a more playful sense, we have Google Doodles. Those have been a thing for literally ever, but they are super impactful because they bring a new sense of design to an otherwise very minimal homepage. It celebrates a bunch of different things and it encourages you to learn about them, whether that is just to hover over the image to see what the hell it's about and to get a little bit of context, or to click through and learn a lot more, or something like the Pac-Man game that happens every so often. It's just something fun. Even the way that the Google like you don't have internet little dinosaur game is incorporated. Sometimes you just play it for shits and giggles. Like I know for a fact I have switched off my internet on my computer before to be able to play the little dinosaur game because it's a fun way to pass the time. It doesn't mean anything. It's just exciting, right? It's delightful, for lack of a better word. And then lastly, let's talk about the owl in the room. I could have used the logo. I found this picture on Google and it spoke to me on like a deep emotional level. But I feel Duolingo is very good at what they do, in many a sense, not just in the app itself, because obviously the app has its streaks and it has levels and it has the personification of your little character that you can create, the playful tone, playful being like, maybe not the right word to use there, but the tone that it uses to talk to you in, the way that it incorporates like pop culture references. In my one little thing that I had, my level that I did, I got the Finding Nemo quote of like fish are friends, not food. And when I did that, I was like, oh my God, I know that quote. I've had a couple of those since, but that one stuck with me for some reason. But then recently they started gamifying their social media. I don't know if you guys saw the beef between the Duolingo owl and the Cybertruck that killed it or tried to kill it. Duolingo had beef with Tesla, probably justifiably, but it has a very engaging social media presence. And each of their regions, like if you were to be willing to go look at the different region TikToks that they have, the German one is very German. It really likes its techno. It's very funny. But not only is it fun and engaging, it's also culturally relevant because like the American Duolingo owl has different posts to the German Duolingo owl, which is different to the French one and the Japanese one. And it kind of becomes this like scavenger hunt for a user like myself who is deeply, desperately entrenched um, to see all of the lore that gets shared. So it's just like it's fun and interesting, and again has no bearing on my day to day. So before I conclude, this is me begging, right? So I've mentioned maybe once or twice, I don't know if you guys have listened, that I'm doing my master's currently. So I made a very bad, no good, stupid decision in that my master's is very interesting and I love it dearly. However, I decided that my participant pool going to be made up of 11 to 14-year-olds because my research is on how using gamification and playful design can encourage youngsters, so like preteens, again, 11 to 14. If any of you have children in that age range, please hit me up. I won't exploit your children, I promise. But how using gamification and playful design can encourage young people, especially, to become more engaged with science initiatives, citizen science initiatives, and environmental science research. So I'm not allowed to say that we're affiliated because we are definitely not. But if you were to think of the love child between Duolingo, the language learning app, and the Scouts organization, that is the Scouts organization, and to make an app of those two things to let your children learn about in exciting environmental, probably for the most part, because that's easy to do now, you know, room for growth for sure. But to learn about those kinds of tasks and be excited by just learning in general. Think of an app that can do that. That is what my research is based on. I would like to diversify my participant pool because I have, you know, the people in my life who have children within that age range. They are tired of me listening to me talk about that kind of thing. So if you would like to, you know, offer your child services, I promise I will not exploit them. It's effectively just user testing. I just want feedback on the kinds of designs that these children find interesting and engaging, and finding a way to digitize what should be otherwise a tangible project. Right. I'm happy to share more and to share like letters and the actual information, but I thought I'd just like toss it out into the ether because maybe someone would be interested. Also, if you want to fund my project to bring it to market, I will never say no. Anyway. Thanks for laughing at my jokes. Sorry. To kind of just end off my very long, very silly ramble, I want to just reiterate, play invites people in. It's fun. It's exciting. It's like having a cool haircut and someone talking to you in the coffee shop because they like your hair. It doesn't have to do anything or mean anything, but it gets a smile. I told the lady today I liked her glasses, and she was like, "Oh, they're new." And I said, "Oh, they suit you." And she really liked that. So, you know, that is the kind of experience, the like delight, the whimsy that I want us to try and incorporate in our day to day. I think it can make the world a better place. I think especially in these unprecedented times that keep becoming more unprecedented, both like locally and globally, for a myriad different reasons. I don't know what that's about. I think introducing fun in whatever way we can, whether that is for personal gratification or from a professional point of view, can be really impactful. I don't know if I'm quite to the level of like being the change you want to see in the world, kind of enthusiastic about this, because that's a very tall ask. Um, but for me personally, delight isn't an extra, it's an essential. And I think, you know, your life could be better if you were to incorporate the same kind of perspective. So I want to encourage you guys, and I know not everyone, especially not everyone online, are designers in the sense that like I am a designer or whatever. I want to encourage you to think about the fact that like many things that you do in your day-to-day life are based in design, whether that is you setting your schedule in Google Calendar and picking the colors that your tasks or your events are planned in, make it all very nice and visually appealing. Whether you arrange your study or your office in a certain way, you get that feng shui flowing to make it more homey, cozy, productive, whatever your end goal is there. That's design. Whether you are very particular about the way that you plate your yogurt and muesli in the morning, all of these things can be design. And if you enjoy them, you can make them fun as well. It doesn't have to be a difficult astronomical task, right? So I would like for us to consider that what if we took fun as seriously as we take function? I think it's an important aspect in anything that we do. So I think that is what I'm going to leave you guys with. And by that, I mean, I'm probably still going to be here and we're going to have a chit chat. But this is the end of my presentation. So that was fun. Thank you. Anyway, anyone have any questions? How do I, nice, I found it. Found the transcript as well. That is horrifying. Hang on. Just open the chat on the side. Okay. Thanks, Claire. Anyway, anyone have any questions for me? Any talking points? Yes. Basic question.
Can you over gamify? Like when do you know
Oh.
it's too much? They clicked yay.
Yes.
They swipe ooh. Know that okay.
Yeah. I love that. So for the viewers in the void, the question was, can you over gamify? I think that's a subjective question. I'm going to say no. Probably yes. The like realistic, like professional answer is probably yeah, definitely. But I don't necessarily think that's a gamification problem. I think it's a design problem. It's like I think as like young UI designers, we all have a very strong attachment to accent colors or a very particular font or a very particular icon pack that maybe is not super cool and helpful in every single project that we work on. So I think it's less gamification because I think a lot of gamification is also just trial and error because certain users are going to be more engaged by different elements. Whereas others are going to like something else. So you need to do some testing in some senses to see what works and what doesn't. And you can always cut it back later. But I think it's a design issue more than a game issue, if that makes sense. Probably a non-answer, but I'm going to stick to it. I have a hand up on the Teams. Navisha.
Hi there. I
Hi.
really loved the PowerPoints about gamification. Very insightful.
Thank you.
My question is, do you think because of the rise of AI, it has really like influenced gamification because I feel like I see gamification on every app that I am today.
Yeah. I don't know if that's necessarily AI's fault, and this is going to be one of the few times that I say that because I am very pro bullying AI, even though it is a helpful tool, and I will admit that out loud, I suppose. I don't necessarily think it is an AI problem. I do just think that it is a design trend at this point. It's something new, not necessarily to the industry as a whole, but it is a discipline that is gaining traction with the general public. So in the same sense that like when flat design became popular a couple years ago, everything was flat. I think a lot of things that maybe don't need to be gamified are going to try and gamify themselves because you're going to have one gamification expert on every UX team going, I know this very cool trick that's going to force our users to do the things we want them to do, who don't really understand the nuances in a way that's going to benefit them, and it's going to fizzle out. So I do think the trend will die down eventually, probably, hopefully soon. Um, but yeah, this is the one thing that I can't blame on AI, I think. But I'm sure we can find something if we talk about this long enough. Sorry, ChatGPT.
Yes.
So talking about AI,
Yeah, oh
I'm
no.
surprised that ChatGPT and the other AI platforms haven't gamified it yet. So the number of queries,
Oh,
streaks. So what we've seen with the Studio Ghibli thing
yes.
is creating delight, right?
Yeah. People are so mad at that though.
Yeah, that led to a lot of signups. I think they had 1 million signups.
That's crazy, actually. That's horrifying.
Ridiculous. So that moment of delight in the created image
Yes.
is sort of like, I wouldn't say it's gamification, but it's possibly linked to
Yeah, I
some sort of feeling that you get, which is similar to gamification.
Yeah, I think that would probably lean more towards like playful design than it would gamification specifically, because I think the one kind of caveat with gamification is that there needs to be some outcome for it, right? Because like, yeah, you're getting the picture at the end of it, but it's not doing anything beyond just the picture. So you're not getting that value from it, I think. And it also like it's not gamified in the sense that like I can still use ChatGPT to do everything else. If I choose to not engage with the image generation, the Studio Ghibli one or otherwise, it's not going to make a difference to how it helps me plagiarize or you know, um, edit. Anyway, or sorry, not plagiarize. Very effectively come up with things. You know?
Also think it's a function of just how much money they make.
Oh yeah.
You're paying for it and it's delivering value. So the trying to build a habit when you are on a subscription is a different story.
Ugh. I see Catherine has a hand up here.
Hey, yeah, I think the comment on plagiarizing, I can tell you're a lecturer. Maybe had to deal with that once or twice.
Yes.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed the discussion around play. On Tuesday, it was 1st of April, and
Yes.
my work office is normally a reasonably serious place.
Mm.
And suddenly it had this kind of energy to it. Nothing particularly exciting happened, but it still had like a level of energy and playfulness. And I can't tell you if people were more productive or less productive because of it, but they were definitely happier to be there. And as soon as you make your people happier to be there,
Yes.
it eventually increases productivity. So that was something really nice to see kind of putting into practice. Regarding my actual question, I think gamification is something that we all love talking about. Oh, let's gamify this. We'll bring in more users. We'll have users coming back. Whatever your kind of platform is. In what scenarios would you say it should be avoided? Like, my immediate thought is, let's say, a funeral home. Let's maybe not have like a +3 points for logging in today.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a very, very obvious kind of example, but what would some other kind of scenarios be where you think maybe it's not the best idea to implement?
I think ultimately, I think the funeral home example is a pretty strong starting point. Probably that one is top of the list. I will be stealing that from you moving forward. I'm sorry, it's plagiarism. But no, effectively, I think a lot of the essential services that we use could probably benefit from not being gamified. So I use Discovery for my medical aid. And I know with the Vitality, they have that like gamification aspect of like you do things to get points and the points get you shit and sorry, to get you things. And I'd like to state for the record, I did pretty well considering that I have a potty mouth. But no, I think so. Yes, the Vitality thing is gamified, but the actual medical aid portion of it is not. Which is good in my opinion. I think banking apps probably don't gamify those. I'm already spending more money than I should. Please do not give me rewards for that. Maybe give me rewards if I don't spend money, but I don't think that necessarily benefits the bank in how much I'm paying for like transaction fees and stuff at this point. So I think essential services that you can't get away from, medical aid, banking, safety services, probably maybe let's not gamify like emergency services. All of the things that, again, I think this like links back to my very, very early talking point, and I do realize that I yapped a lot and I'm sorry, but games and game-like scenarios should be voluntary. You should be able to opt into them. You cannot necessarily opt into gamifying your medical aid, for example, or your banking app because you have to use those. So maybe you could have an opt-in within the banking app where you're like, yeah, I'm okay with this, being addictive. But anything that the general public has to use, I would probably steer away from gamifying, unless you do it in a very clever way that is above my pay grade. And have like a team of people talking about that.
Cool, thanks. I appreciate it.
Cool. Oh.
Now about banking stuff. Well, I'm like, wouldn't you say, what's your take then on rewards programs and linking it to gamification?
Ooh.
Because I mean, like if you think of F&B
Mm.
with e-bucks, right? Yeah, that's something.
Yes.
Going and swiping a card at a certain garage,
Yes.
then get rewards. Like, what I mean,
Mm.
e-bucks.
Is rewards gamification?
Yeah, like is that whole like this like ecosystem or whatever that is going on there, is that gamification or
Like-
like the gamified experience?
I'd like to state for the record, I didn't sign up for difficult questions. You're supposed to be on my side. For the friends in the void, this is my best friend asking me questions. I'm not just bullying a random person. She did opt in to being bullied. But no, the question was like, is things like existing systems like F&B e-bucks, is that gamification? I would say categorically, yes, it is gamification. However, I think it like goes back to that conversation. I need to stop and like making noise. I'm sorry. But I think it goes back to the conversation of like positive reinforcement. So it's like they have partnerships, F&B have partnerships with Engine and Clicks, etc. So by shopping with their partners, you get points back. However, you don't get penalized if you go to Discam. So there's no negative repercussion to how they've gamified that.
Yeah.
You don't lose eBucks. They don't say like, oh, I'm taking 5 back because you went to Sasol instead of Engine. So I think that and this probably goes back to Catherine's point as well. It's like, I do think there are probably ways to do it well. I think that's an example of how to do it well, because again, you're like rewarding positive behavior as opposed to punishing negative behavior.
But it's like the same with discovery. If you
Yes.
act a certain way, which is determined by them, that's what they define as positive.
Yes.
I think links back to your one side with, when you're playing a game,
Yeah.
rules to your game.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah, so the comment there, for those who didn't hear, is just saying like, kind of like asking like what is positive
Yeah.
to a large extent. And I think in terms of this conversation, it's like anything that benefits the person that's offering the service effectively first. Because like first and foremost, it is to F&B or discovery or whatever's benefit that you are going to their partners, because they get a large amount of money when you do that, and you get a little tiny portion back that's like not real money. Even what even is an eBuck, and why do I need 100 of them to do anything with it? So you are indirectly helping the big institution, organization, whatever. And so it's positive in the sense that it's like, that's what they want you to do. Like, if you want to get really philosophical about it, like, what is positive action anyway? Because like, is it just like, because we could talk about this from like a societal point of view, we could talk about it from like a religious point of view, like a moral point of view. Like, what is positive? As like, it's like one of those things of like, if a tree falls in a forest, did anyone hear it? So like, if you go shop at Sasol instead of Engine, does F&B hate you? I don't know. But yeah, I think positive in the sense is that it's like mutually beneficial. It's a symbiotic relationship of you going to Engine to get your points back and F&B getting a cockload of money because they pay for petrol in some way. Anyone else? Anyone in the void? Oh, yes. Cool.
So in the financial space,
Oh my
you
God.
say that gamifying, you investing.
Ooh.
That you see
Hell yeah.
Would you say that is positive?
Yes. Yeah, because me as a self-proclaimed young person have no idea how to do that. Getting points or rewards for learning how to do that. Absolutely.
That's what NetBank is doing with greenbacks.
Yes.
Yeah, but the leveling is that you move on to separate levels when your financial standing gets better. So when your credit score improves, you get onto the next level. And it really makes you opt in.
Yeah.
Because it's only 30 Rand a month.
Mm.
And the return of that is the good habits that you create yourself.
Yeah. Spooky. Duan has a question.
I want to ask, so the shallow gamification you meant is likely very useful because a lot of companies uses it.
Yeah.
But I want to ask, is there a risk of maybe overshadowing the user's like intrinsic motivations when you use that?
Ooh, I think absolutely, for sure. So one of the institutions that I teach for has introduced a token system effectively. So you like do things that they deem beneficial in some way. I hope I get a bunch of tokens for doing this talk. I will be uploading it to the portal. But effectively, how it came about is like 2 years ago, people were like, oh, we want 1 extra day off per semester or per term or something like that. And then they were like, no, that's going to cost us so much money. It's a teaching institution. It's like very like detrimental to the teachers to take time off, actually, because that creates so much work. Additionally, I don't want to do this week's work next week. Anyway, so to kind of circumvent people just taking a whole 1 extra day off per term, they introduced this token system and was like, okay, if you get a certain number of tokens, you can spend it on stuff. So you can get like a half day off, or you can go do something, or they'll pay for a LinkedIn subscription or whatever. You like do the thing to get the stuff. And that's all good and well if it's something that you would like and wouldn't otherwise do for yourself. But effectively, what has happened is people are now complaining about it because they are having to go above and beyond to get something that they should be getting in the first place. So I do think, and I think that's a pretty solid example of like the negative effects of gamification. Because in any other sense, if it was like a video game or something, you know, the stakes wouldn't be that high. But like, why do I have to do 2 talks and go on a park run to get enough points off to take a half day? You know, it's like fair, it's fine, you know, whatever. But I don't teach on a Friday afternoon anyway. So like, why do I need to apply to take that time off? It gets a little demotivating because at some point it starts going from like being fun to being super dystopian. And I think that is kind of where the balance is quite important. And I think if you do it for the wrong reasons, it's very easy to tip the scale into that like negative kind of sense.
Thank you.
Cool. I ramble. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. That was fun. Anyone else? I'm still here. Follow me on LinkedIn. It's at Nicole Buckle. But yeah, anyway, that was super cool. Thank you guys for engaging. I hope it was at least a little bit beneficial. And if you didn't actually learn anything from it, I hope it changed the way that you think about some things, because I will count that as a win.